is a time to meet in the full dignity of our sorrow. But this is a day of mourning for Martin Luther King, for Washington, for Detroit, for Memphis, and Chicago. And it should also be a day of mourning in Sitka. For as the earthquakes of Alaska were felt in Boston, so the impact of the shot in Tennessee must be felt in this city. Events occur that alter the course of our nation. Events that must be recognized for what they tell us of ourselves, where we stand in reality, rather than in our fondest dreams. Such an event, a tragic affair, occurred in Memphis, Tennessee, Thursday evening, when Martin Luther King was shot and killed. And the tragedy of that occurrence is still upon us, and may remain with us for many days to come. So today, I will not make a political speech. Today I wish to share with you my personal thoughts in a time of sorrow and in a time of fear. As we meet today, we should know that 10,000 federal troops have been stationed in your nation's capital. They surround the White House. They surround Capitol Hill. The people of Washington, D.C. have been ordered off the streets from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 6:30 in the morning. Firemen who are attempting to fight the blazes in the District of Columbia have taken gunfire. And last night there were fires in 70 Washington stores. There is a red glow over the city this afternoon. The city of Chicago is also under a curfew. The National Guard troops have been called in by the governor. I am not stressing these things to be an alarmist or to strike fear into your hearts. I tell you these things because they are occurring. And until we recognize things for what they are, until we recognize how serious the situation confronts our nation, we will never be able to meet the crises or forge realistic or meaningful solutions. A man of vision has made the observation that the most exciting, the most dramatic, the most promising development for all mankind in the second 1,000 years since the birth of Christ is the United States of America. Never before in the history of the world have a people developed a form of government and a set of ideals so close to the most intimate dreams and wishes of all men than have we in America. If any man ever doubted the good intentions of his fellow man, if any man ever wondered whether institutions of government could be responsive to human needs, if any man ever yearned for a way of life that satisfied his desires for human freedom and dignity, he could look to America. This was our image. In truth, this was America as we knew it, as we grew in it, and as we have taught our children. Yet one feels today that we have been so content to live with what we were convinced our country was, we have refused to take sight of what in the decade of the 60s our country has become. If we are willing to face it, all of the ugly signs are there to see. It seems that we have lost hold of our communities. It seems as though our country is pulling apart into separate societies who do not know one from another. Separate societies of the rich and the poor, of the black and the white, of the old and the young, where whites have jobs and Negroes have unemployment, where the middle class lives in suburbs and the poor are left in the ghettos, where one group of Americans looks upon another group of Americans with growing mistrust and even dread. And where, unfortunately, not because we lack the goodwill, but because we lack the faith in ourselves, our response often is to bolt the door, to hire more police, and stay away as far as we can from the centers of violence. In this decade, we have lived through periods of more hate and violence than perhaps any other time in the history of our country. It is a decade the likes of which we must never, and we can never live through again. But as we approach the 70s, we must keep in mind the events of the 60s, or we will be compelled, as it has been said, to relive the past we have forgotten. The death of Martin Luther King was not the work of the white society, it was the work of a sad mind filled with hate. The death of Medgar Evers, of Emmett Till, the 4 little girls in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, of the Reverend James Reed of my own state of Massachusetts, of Viola Luizzi of Detroit, of Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman. None of these tragic occurrences were the result of any one group or of another. They all suffered at the hands of individuals who somehow had the notion, in their sickness, that their violent actions would be tolerated. To the extent that all of us are to blame, black and white together, we are to blame for the apathy that gave the haters a license to hunt people in America. And those who now loot and steal, those who claim they have the right to honor the memory of a man of peace, a man who stood for everything that was nonviolent, by burning our cities, by breaking into the places of business, and terrorizing our neighborhoods, they too are suffering from an illness that, if allowed to go unchecked, will further drag down this great nation. Their actions cannot be tolerated. They will not be tolerated, for they do not mourn a great leader, they mock him. What has become of our land? What disease has affected us as a people? How many good men must we give? Common man in the streets, a holder of the Nobel Peace Prize, and even a President of the United States, before we finally face the fact that the weakness of our society is the weakness in ourselves, within each and every one of us who are complacent, who are doing well, who realize the comforts of material gain, and who are, above all else, apathetic. Where is the moral strength within us? The qualities of character that we attribute in stories to our children of the American heroes that have gone before us. I, for one, do not feel that we are any less than our forebears. I, for one, do not feel that there is anyone within this room who has less courage, less conviction, or is any less dedicated to the American dream than generations past. But I do feel that in a few short years we have let events master us rather than we them. I do feel in our great history we have fallen into a lapse. We have refused, each and every one of us, to exercise the talents and character bred into us. And as a result, in a land that was created on the Judeo-Christian ideals of love and brotherhood, we have let the haters take the lead. And we are paying that price today, as we have paid for it many days and nights in this difficult decade. It is not until we recognize that hundreds of years of oppression must be accommodated, not by the least we can give, but by the utmost we can give, will these nights of sadness and fear end. It is not the bigot among us who has brought us to where we are, for men of goodwill ignore him. It is not the racist among us who has brought our society so low, for it is easy to see and discount him. We are where we are because all of us are passing through life with our own personal blinders on. We favor civil rights bills and feel a warm glow in our hearts when we hear the eloquence of a Martin Luther King. We cluck our tongues over the agitators in the streets and call them outside troublemakers or ne'er-do-wells. In essence, we are all very decent men and women of good faith. And we are all doing very busy with our careers and with our families, all too busy with our own concerns